The cafe was alive with noise and warmth, every corner filled with conversations, laughter, and the steady rhythm of cups being set on saucers. In the middle of that cheerful crowd, a young woman entered quietly, holding her tray with both hands. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for a place to sit, but each table was already taken. She hesitated, her hopeful smile flickering as she approached one table after another. Each time, she was met with the same response, kind but firm shakes of the head, strangers avoiding her eyes, people pretending to be too busy to notice her. The longer she stood, the heavier the silence around her seemed to grow. It wasn't the noise of the cafe that pressed on her, it was the loneliness, the reminder that she didn't belong. Her tray trembled slightly in her grip as she tried to remain calm, but her face revealed the quiet sting of rejection. In a room full of people, she felt invisible. The smell of fresh coffee and baked pastries filled the air, yet for her, the atmosphere felt cold and unwelcoming. She lingered near the edge of the tables, unsure whether to leave or stand in hope that someone might notice. For a moment, she wished desperately that just one person would look up, smile, and make room for her. But no one did. And so, in the heart of a crowded cafe, she stood alone, carrying not only her coffee but also the weight of being unseen. The young woman almost turned to leave, but then a gentle voice called out from the back of the cafe. A man, seated with a little girl who was coloring on the back of a menu, raised his hand. His smile was warm, not forced, and his eyes carried kindness instead of dismissal. "You can sit with us, if you'd like," he said softly. For a moment she hesitated, unsure if she had heard him right. But the little girl looked up, her face bright with innocence, and gave a tiny nod of encouragement. Relief washed over the woman as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her chest. She walked toward them, balancing her tray carefully, and placed it down with a grateful smile. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely rising above the cafe's hum. The man shrugged lightly, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "No one should have to stand when there's room at the table," he replied. His daughter slid her crayons aside to make space, watching curiously as the woman sat down. It wasn't just a seat she had found, it was a moment of unexpected welcome, a break in the wall of loneliness. For the first time since she had entered the cafe, she felt seen. And in that simple invitation, the beginning of something deeper quietly unfolded. At first, their conversation was light, almost casual. The woman commented on the smell of the coffee, the man joked about how his daughter always asked for extra whipped cream even though she never finished it. The little girl shyly held up her drawing, and the woman smiled, praising the bright colors. For a brief moment, it felt like an ordinary encounter. But as the minutes passed, something shifted. The woman's voice softened, her smile trembling at the edges. She admitted she had just moved to town a week ago, leaving everything familiar behind. She spoke of how she tried to meet people, yet no one seemed to notice her. The words came slowly, like she wasn't sure if she should say them aloud. Her eyes shimmered with the tears she was holding back. The man didn't interrupt. He simply listened, his expression calm, his presence steady. His daughter, sensing the heaviness in the air, reached into her pile of crayons and picked the brightest one, a sunny yellow. Without saying a word, she slid it across the table to the woman. The gesture was so small, but it was powerful. The woman laughed softly through her tears, taking the crayon like it was a gift. For the first time in days, the loneliness inside her cracked open, replaced by the warmth of connection. And in that moment, three strangers were no longer strangers at all, they were simply people who needed each other. The man set his cup down, his gaze thoughtful as he leaned back slightly. "You know," he began gently, "I understand what it feels like to carry loneliness around." His tone carried a quiet weight, the kind that came from lived experience. The woman looked at him, surprised, as he continued. He told her about his life, how he was raising his daughter alone after his wife passed away 2 years earlier. The cafe had been one of the few places he could bring his little girl to escape the silence of their empty home. He admitted there were days he, too, felt invisible, walking through crowds where no one knew his story, no one guessed the battles he fought quietly. The woman listened, her chest tightening with empathy. Until then, she had thought her pain was hers alone, but hearing his honesty gave her a strange comfort. She wasn't the only one struggling to find her place in the world. The little girl, unaware of the depth of their words, hummed softly as she scribbled stars across the page of her coloring book. Her small, steady presence was like a reminder that even in brokenness, life went on. In that quiet corner of the café, two adults who had entered as strangers shared something rare: understanding. They realized that sometimes, the greatest healing comes not from answers or advice, but from knowing that someone else truly sees you. And in that moment, both hearts felt just a little lighter. When the woman finally glanced at the clock, she realized more time had passed than she expected. She stood slowly, clutching her tray, but her eyes lingered on the father and daughter. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Thank you, for letting me sit here. You made me feel like I belong." The man smiled, not with pity but with genuine kindness. "Sometimes," he said softly, "all it takes is one person to say yes." His daughter, her hands smudged with crayon marks, lifted her little palm and waved brightly. "Bye-bye," she chirped, her innocence filling the space with lightness. The woman felt tears prick her eyes, but this time they weren't from sadness. They were from relief, from gratitude, from the simple miracle of being seen. She stepped out of the café with her coffee in hand, the cool air brushing her face, but her heart felt warmer than it had in weeks. She walked down the busy street with a renewed sense of hope. The world hadn't changed, but something inside her had. That small act of compassion, just a seat at a table, had reminded her that kindness still existed, that humanity was still alive in unexpected places. And as she blended into the crowd, she carried the memory with her, a quiet promise to herself. One day, she would be the person who said yes to someone else who felt alone. A simple gesture, yet powerful enough to change a life.